It's the Arizona Wildcat Signing Day Special, brought to you by Desert Diamond Casinos and Entertainment. We're here inside the Arizona Daily Star newsroom. I'm sports editor Ryan Finley, joined by Daniel Berk. Daniel, lots to talk about today. Rich Rodriguez unveiled his signing day class Wednesday. Obviously, lots of household names in there, a couple we don't know about too. Tell me, sort of, what was your big takeaway, and how does this class look compared to what he's had in the past?
I think the biggest thing is this is clearly, his best recruiting class in the 3 years that he's been here. Depending on which rankings you look at, they're anywhere from number 23 to 30, and they have 4 or 5 four-star guys, whereas opposed to the first couple of years, he was just getting 1 or 2. So I think they continue to build in the right direction. I think the biggest thing this year was with the addition of Lowell Stevens football facility, he had something to sell, and he didn't have previously there was things he wanted to avoid, didn't want to show him. This year showed him everything with pride, and there was a lot to sell to the program. So definitely, I think the best of his tenure here, and the expectation now is that it just continues to get better every year.
Sure. The centerpiece of this class obviously is Cameron Denson, a 4-star defensive back and wide receiver from South Point Catholic. What did getting Denson so early in the process mean, and where do you think he's going to play right away as a freshman, or will he play right away?
It was huge to get him early. He was the first guy to commit, and he's been committed now for 13 months. He was the first guy, and Rich Rod said yesterday that he was the lowest maintenance, high profile recruit that they've ever had. So once he committed, no visits or anything like that, and he's going to start out at wide receiver. And he's going to return some kicks and punts, and then I also think you could see him on some third down packages on defense playing cornerback. But this is when Rich Rod took this job, the first thing he talked about was we got to lock down Arizona, we got to lock down Tucson. So if you have a 4-star prospect 3 miles away from the University of Arizona, you have to get him. They did with Denson. They kept him for 13 months, and now I think that they have a centerpiece for this recruiting class and a guy that he's not going to redshirt. He's going to play right away.
Denson's South Point teammate Kalen DeBoski was scheduled to sign with the Wildcats on Wednesday, but then there was a little bit of a hiccup at the end. Is he still part of their plans, and what's going to happen there?
Yeah, I still think they expect him to sign. He transferred from a high school in Texas in the middle of last year, so I think there's some transcript issue there. He's still going to be in the fold. Now, he is a guy that it wouldn't shock me if he redshirts a year and it's more of a project going forward, but they're excited about him too. 3-star wide receiver, can return some kicks and punts too. But no, eventually he'll get in the fold, but Rich Rod couldn't talk about him yesterday since it wasn't official.
One guy who Rich Rod did not get locally is Andrew Mike. He verbally committed to Vanderbilt and then changed his mind 24 hours later and is now going to Florida. What is Florida getting in Andrew Mike, and maybe why wasn't he a part of Arizona's plans?
Well, Arizona's philosophy in the last 2 years has been commit early and stay committed, and they want guys that are in early in the summer. And Andrew Mike kind of wanted to take his time with his recruitment, and it's different philosophies. He wanted to take a lot of visits. He wanted to play out his senior season, and Rich Rod in Arizona want to get guys in early. So they brought in 2 other offensive tackles that they're excited about. One, Jordan Poland from Southern California, who was committed to USC at one point, 6'8", 335. So I think with Mike, they felt like he was good, but he wasn't good enough maybe to wait for, and they made a decision. So now he's going to SEC school in Florida. You maybe start to wonder,
right.
But I think they're real happy with the linemen they brought in, and they have some needs there, not next year, but going forward, that they're going to have some holes to fill.
Sure. When you talk about the guys who can play right away, obviously they're a pair of defensive players, high school teammates from California. Where do they fit in now going forward?
Jamadre Cobb is a middle linebacker who he could have gone anywhere. I mean, he could have gone to LSU. He could have gone to Oklahoma, Ohio State, and he's coming here. He's a guy that I think will be Jake Fisher's replacement at middle linebacker next year. 6'2", 220, just a freak. And Rich Rod said yesterday that he's a guy some people hit and tackle. He blows you up.
Wow.
And so he's a guy that I think he's going to play right away. And then his teammate, like you said, Marquise Ware. Rich Rod has talked endlessly about needing that freak off the end, that pass rush that can get to quarterback. And Arizona hasn't had that guy since Brooks Reed. Marquise Ware is that guy that outside linebacker, defensive end, they think he can get to the quarterback on third down. He can get you some sacks. And, I think both of those guys, like Denson, they're not redshirting. They're going to play right away.
Daniel, everybody knows about these big-name guys, obviously. We've written about them in the Arizona Daily Star. People have talked about them. Give me one lesser-known guy who you think is going to make a big impact right away.
There's a kid, Tony Ellison. He is like the, I think, 119th ranked wide receiver by Scout.com, and he's a guy that I think they think can be maybe that Nate Phillips type guy. If we would have done this last year, I wouldn't have talked about Scooby Wright, Nate Phillips, and Samaje Grant, and those were the three best freshmen this year. Tony Ellison's a guy that I think he can come in. He's a track guy, real fast, which you know how Rich Rod feels about those guys. And I think he's a guy that doesn't get talked about a lot, but he can play. So Tony Ellison's a guy. Devon Brewer, who was recruited as a safety, but I think now will play some cornerback because that's a need. He's a guy that I think plays right away. And then Levi Walton, who I think in 2 years is going to be your starting center at Arizona. He was a two-star kid out of Fort Myers, Florida. They went across the country and got him. So those are three guys that I think kind of under the radar, don't get talked a lot about, but they'll be impactful guys here.
Great stuff as usual, Daniel. That's it from our Desert Diamond studio. Ryan Finley for Daniel Berk saying, see you next time.
3 casinos, great dining, big name concerts. Choose your setting at Desert Diamond.